The Cardinals are recruiting a player from the G League.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? And welcome into this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my sixth year covering U of L, fourth year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. Don't forget to leave a comment in the YouTube section below because, as you all know, that's a great way to help the show continue to grow. It is much appreciated. But on today's show, we're discussing some recruiting news that we got over the weekend. The Louisville Cardinals are recruiting a player from the G League. Yes, you heard that right. 21-year-old big man Abdullah Ahmed has received an offer from Louisville. We're going to react to that and discuss what he could potentially bring to the program. We will talk about two upcoming official visits that are currently scheduled, Anthony Felesi and Jaxon Richardson. And then to conclude the show, we're going to react to the KenPom rankings that have dropped. College basketball season is just around the corner. So a lot to dissect, a lot to discuss. But first, today's episode of the show is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. At the end of last week, we had our basketball mailbag, the questions surrounding recruiting. Colvin Landrew makes his decision on Wednesday. Seems like all signs are pointing to him being a UConn Husky. Things could change at the 11th hour, but even if he did choose Louisville, there's still questions about recruiting guards and recruiting big men. And we know that Pat Kelsey doesn't just use high school recruiting to fill the roster. Of course, the portal as well, right? He doesn't just use the traditional options. He brought in 3 international recruits this past cycle, Muhammad Kamara, Evangelos Zugris, and Sananda Fru. Pat Kelsey is committed to just bringing talent to this program, and now it looks like he's going down a different avenue. Because there was a tweet over the weekend that basically stated, paraphrasing here, that Louisville offered a player from the G League. And I had to do a double take. I was like, hold on. What? The G League? And then I remember back to last month, and I think his name was Thierry Darlin, player from Santa Clara that got ruled eligible. He came from the G League, got ruled eligible to play college basketball. Now, here's the thing. Is this going to be a precedent moving forward? Like, because Darlin got ruled eligible, does this mean all of the potential G League guys that, I don't know what the requirements will be. I would imagine you can't play even a single second in the NBA. You can't have gone to college before that and played in college. So I would imagine if you haven't played in the NBA, if you haven't exhausted college eligibility, and you come from the G League, you could probably play, is what it seems like based upon this ruling. Now, I would imagine that with the other schools that have offered Louisville that were also mentioned in that tweet, Auburn, BYU, Houston, Mississippi State, and UCLA, I would imagine there wouldn't be that much significant college interest if there were some serious concerns about if he was going to be eligible or not. Now, the other thing that we have to focus on is that he is NBA draft eligible. He could have went and entered the 2025 draft. He did not. Abdullah Ahmed can enter this draft. Will he? Seems like he's going to go the college route. Let's put that to the side. Let's focus on the prospect. Abdullah Ahmed, 6'10", 210-pound big man from Egypt. He's 21 years old. He turns 22 in less than a month. So one of the older players trying to go the college route, and we've seen Pat Kelsey have no issue with bringing in this type of player. Evangelos Zugris, Sananda Fru will be, I mean, I don't think that they're going to be freshmen. Or are they freshmen? Fru and Zugris, what's their academic standing? Like, what are they considered in terms of class? Anyways, we'll put that off to the side. Pat Kelsey has shown that he's not afraid of bringing in older players because at the end of the day, those are going to be the guys that are likely to contribute right away. And I'll say this for the record. I don't care if it's the high school ranks, the transfer portal, the international waters, or now the G League. I don't care where you get the players. I just want Pat Kelsey and company to put the best team on the court every single season. That's all I want. Find the best players out there. Bring in the most talent that, of course, they fit your system. I don't care where you get them. If you can go to the G League and get them now, awesome. Now, Abdullah played the past 2 seasons for the Westchester Knicks. Of course, they are the G League affiliate of the New York Knicks. And in 2024-2025, he played in 15 games and started 8 of them. 4 points a game, 5.5 rebounds a game, and 2.1 blocks. He shot 45.9% from the field, which isn't really that great for a rim-running big man. But still, I think that there are parts to Ahmed's game that you could really like. And they project to him having a good amount of success at the college level. Now, the ceiling, I think, is very questionable because there is a good amount of development that needs to happen, especially with his offensive repertoire. But the floor, I feel like, is high because he understands his role. And with the level of competition between the G League and D1 college basketball, you got to think of who's in the G League. Former NCAA stars and standouts. Former lottery picks are playing in the G League. Some of the best international players in the world are playing in the G League. Some of the best young prospects are playing in the G League. Dink Pate is one that comes to mind. So the level of competition is better in the G League. Averaging 2.1 blocks, 4 rebounds, 5.5 rebounds. Not terrible numbers considering the league that he's playing in. But how does that translate over now to college basketball? And I think that he's going to have a larger role than he did for his G League team. But I also think he's going to be more effective. Sananda Fru listed as a junior, by the way. Evangelos Zougaris also a junior. So I would imagine that same thing's going to apply. Abdullah Ahmed, assuming he goes the college route, I don't believe he's going to be a traditional freshman due to his age. So looking at Ahmed the player, first thing that stands out is his shot blocking, 2.1 blocks a game. He's one of the best shot blockers in the G League. Timing, shot blocking instincts. There admittedly hasn't been much film for me to watch, but watching what we have seen on YouTube and on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, I think he's a really effective shot blocker, really effective interior defender, and kind of fits the mold of a big man in Pat Kelsey's system. Not flashy, but a guy that plays his role to a T. Defends the rim, good rebounder, and is a rim runner on offense. Can run the floor because, of course, transition is a huge component of the Cardinals' offensive identity. Having a guy that can run the floor, that can play complementary basketball, like you're not going to run the offense through Abdullah Ahmed, but he's a guy that's going to be able to get into pick and roll action, seal his defender, and roll to the basket, and he finishes really well through contact, strong near the basket, and extremely athletic for being 6'10", 6'11". Good footwork. There is the growing potential for that post game. Like, go watch him play. Go look at some of the highlights. Like, he has shown the ability to go to that drop step and finish over each shoulder. The spin move. Now, is he going to be a guy that you can throw the ball down low to multiple times a game and allow him to go to work and score in the paint? TBD. But I think he's going to play his role. And like I said, if Louisville shows that they're pretty serious with bringing in Abdullah Ahmed, we will analyze his game even more. But at the moment, preliminarily, I'm okay with going to get a player from whatever league, as long as, of course, they're going to be eligible and they fit the system that you run and they're a character fit for your program. Abdullah Ahmed coming from Egypt. The Cardinals have had a history with Egyptian big men. Anas Mahmoud, Ali Khalifa now. So we will see how serious the Cardinals get involved with this recruitment. But the fact that you can recruit players from the G League now is absolutely wild. Anyways, 2026 recruiting has been a huge topic of discussion because Pat Kelsey and company have missed on a couple of their top targets. 2 official visits are still scheduled for the next couple of weeks, and we will discuss when we come back on this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward was Chris Bell's standout performance. Don't forget, Louisville was on a bye, so I have to go back to the Virginia game. And Chris Bell had over 100 receiving yards. He found the end zone, and he was a complete game changer and moved the game forward for the Louisville offense. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. Just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Card Nation, thank you all so much for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville free and available on all streaming services, including YouTube and now TikTok. Be sure to give us a follow on TikTok. 5 days a week, your team every day. Like I mentioned, 2026 recruiting has been a huge topic of discussion. Players that Louisville has been recruiting for a good amount of time have decided or deciding to go elsewhere. Talon Kinney to Kansas. Tyron Stokes is rumored to go to Kentucky. Coleman Landrew probably going to UConn, and other teams or other players that are cutting Louisville from their list. And there was a question in the mailbag is like, well, who does Louisville turn to now? Especially if Coleman Landrew goes elsewhere. I don't have the answer from a guard play perspective. Big men, seems like Josh Irving, 4-star center, and now maybe Abdullah Ahmed from the G League. But there are a couple players that we've discussed on this show more than one time that are still scheduled to make official visits to Louisville in the upcoming weeks. The first one we're going to talk about is Anthony Felesi. Felesi ranked a little bit lower, a top 50 player in the rankings, according to 24/7 Sports, just inside the top 50, 49th best player, 6'5", 180 pounds from Utah Prep. He has been really high on the Louisville since the summer. And he mentioned at multiple points in his recruitment before he scheduled his visits and even after he scheduled them that the Cardinals were the most consistent team in his recruitment. Now, something that's no secret, it's been a trend for a very, very long time. Players on the West Coast, usually more often than not, tend to stay on the West Coast. Now, Felesi has a list that is dominated by the West Coast. Gonzaga, San Diego State, USC, UCLA. Louisville's involved, Pittsburgh's involved, but the majority being out West teams. Took an official visit earlier in September to San Diego State, also to USC. He's going to be at UCLA on October 22nd for an official visit, but the Louisville official visit is still slated for October 25th. That is the weekend, the day of the Boston College football game. That is not this upcoming weekend, but the one after that. Now, the main thing you have to focus on now is whether or not these official visits happen. If he cancels the official visit to Louisville, I would pretty much cross his name off the list. That's kind of the point where I'm at in high school recruiting, where here we are, October 13th, and if a player that has scheduled an official visit to your program cancels said visit, they're probably to be taken off the prospect list because chances are they're not going to come unless they end up rescheduling. So Felesi, it feels like just because of a ranking standpoint, he's been a backup option, but the truth is likely that he's one of the priorities. He's been a priority at the wing position for a good portion of 2025, and he's going to continue to be. And for a program that doesn't have any players committed in the 2026 class, this could be a great opportunity to go get a player that you can develop, because I don't think Anthony Felesi is a one and done. Now, you've seen players, you saw him last year, players that were ranked in that 25 to 60 range that outplayed their ranking, and they ended up getting drafted. I think, 4 or 5 players fit that mold. I know Tahad Pettiford went back to Auburn, but he could have been drafted, and he wasn't a top 20 player. I don't think he was a top 20 player. But even then, if you're looking to get some continuity for your roster, not every player has to be a 5-star guy that's a one and done. Like having a player that you feel like you can develop, especially with the athletic upside and the defensive prowess that Felesi possesses, I think he fits the system really well. I would love for Anthony Felesi to be that first commitment for the Louisville Cardinals, because good chance that you're going to go to the transfer portal to get your go-to scorers, your go-to starters anyway, assuming that guys like Case and Pryor don't come back. I know Case can potentially come back because of the JUCO ruling, but I wouldn't imagine that he does. Adrian Woolley, I predict, is going to come back unless he just has a phenomenal season, which he might, but he could be the go-to guy in 2026, 27. You get the point that I'm trying to make. You can use the high school ranks to build up your roster, guys that you can develop internally. Felesi would be a good option. Now, Jaxon Richardson might not necessarily fit that trajectory. Jaxon Richardson is a 5-star prospect, according to 24/7 Sports Composite, 22nd best player in the country, 9th best small forward, 4th best player in the state of Florida. What's interesting in this one is that his official visit is slated for November 8th, and at the current moment, that is his last official visit on the books. He just visited UCLA not too long ago. He visits Creighton this upcoming weekend. November 1st, it's Ole Miss. But Louisville gets that visit November 8th, which is the weekend of the California football game. Richardson, a different type of prospect than Felesi. Richardson, honestly, very well could be one of the best athletes in the class. 3-point shooting, perimeter scoring, still aspects of his game that need to continue to grow, because he shot 16% from 3 in the EYBL this past circuit, but he's continuing to improve. But the athleticism, the explosiveness, the defensive upside, the willingness to attack the glass, like there is a spot in the rotation for a player of Richardson's caliber, especially for a team that likes to get out and run, use transition basketball and offense. Richardson wouldn't, I think, fit from a perimeter shooting standpoint, but you could probably make up for that with other guys on the floor. Richardson compensates for the lack of perimeter shooting at the moment with all the other things that he does extremely well. And of course, goes without mentioning, there is still almost a year before he will be on a college campus. So another year of internal growth from a shooting aspect. But 2 official visits that I'm watching very closely, because A, those are the only ones that we know about at the moment. And B, these have been players, or these are guys that the Cardinals have been recruiting for a while. They aren't just new prospects, new priorities. These official visits have been set. We haven't heard about them a ton because instinctively we've talked about Taylor Kenny, we've talked about Tyron Stokes, Coleman Landrew, and now Josh Irving. But it's time we circle our attention back to Anthony Felesi and to Jaxon Richardson. Partially because of the process of elimination, because you've struck out with other prospects, but also because they have also been priorities. Now, still, top 50 players, uphill battle. Do you overpay? Do you not overpay? You have to pick and choose which battles you want to do so. We mentioned that on Friday. I believe you've got to get at least 1 to 2 high school commits. This is just my personal belief, right? I think the balance is what's key. You are projected to have some guys return. You will probably go to the international ranks to bring in a couple players. 1 to 2 high school commits and the rest being transfer portal guys, I think is the healthy mix in terms of building your roster. So let's put recruiting to the side for the moment. This upcoming college basketball season is, for the Louisville Cardinals, less than 2 weeks away when they suit up against Kansas in the exhibition. And with the upcoming season approaching, the rankings are coming out. KenPom rankings have been released. Cardinals a little bit lower than where they might project in the AP Top 25. We will discuss your Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. First, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. The Cardinals open up as a 13.5-point underdog this upcoming week on the road at number 2, Miami. And I think that that's pretty justified. So I think FanDuel is getting that right. But if you're a new customer, you can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. One reason I like to use FanDuel is because of the versatility. I switch up my betting all the time. Sometimes I go to just strictly moneyline parlays. Sometimes I play the spread. Sometimes I go with player props. You name it. So the versatility is huge. It's clutch. Don't wait. Visit FanDuel.com to download the app today and get started. And while I have you, in the year 2025, you shouldn't struggle with handling your money. But the reality is most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have the full picture, you end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. You can identify they aren't saving as much as you thought you were. Monarch helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege. Starting this week off with basketball and recruiting talk. When we come back on tomorrow's show, we're going to have some preliminary discussions about the upcoming game against Miami for Louisville football. There will be a crossover episode with Locked On College basketball host Isaac Shade on Thursday to preview the upcoming season for Pat Kelsey's second year. A lot of good stuff coming up on the show this week. But speaking of the college basketball season getting closer, the KenPom rankings and ratings are out. For those who don't know, Ken Pomeroy came out with the KenPom ratings, which are some of the most trusted analytics out there. They factor in net rating, offensive rating, defensive rating, adjusted tempo, luck, strength of schedule, non-conference strength of schedule. It factors in a good amount of different analytical factors and jumbles them into one. And a lot of people like using those rankings over the AP rankings because we saw in football how they don't take AP rankings seriously. But the KenPom ratings usually are pretty reliable. Now, the Louisville Cardinals are currently sitting at 14th. That is second in the ACC behind Duke. Duke is slated at number 7. KenPom has the Cardinals projected to finish second regular season in the conference. And I think it was like 23-8 was the projected win-loss record. But 14th is a little bit lower than you would project the Cardinals to be in the top 25. Now, we'll see what the college basketball top 25 is going to look like as we get closer. But Still, we'll see. I think the Cardinals will be in the top 10. Probably in that 6 to 10 range. I don't think that they're going to be top 5. I do believe that they're going to be in the top 10. If they're not, it is what it is. But I think that this is, on paper, a top 10 basketball team. So what's interesting here is that offensive rating has Louisville number 5 with a 120.6 rating. The only other teams ahead of them are Purdue, UConn, Florida, and BYU. Purdue, UConn, and Florida are all top 5 in the KenPom. So you kind of understand where they're coming from here. The Cardinals overhauled their backcourt. They bring in the number 1 point guard in the 2025 class. They bring in Adrian Woolley, Isaac McNeely, Ryan Conwell. This is going to be one of the best backcourts in the country. Yet Kobe Rogers coming off of his season-ending injury. Or surgery, I should say. It wasn't a season-ending injury. It was the surgery that sidelined them last year. But case in point, you have a deep and very talented backcourt. You also have a really good front court. Kaysen Pryor is back. Javon Hadley, one of the best glue guys in the country. Sananda Fruit. Ali Khalifa with his passing ability and his ability to stretch the floor and hit the deep three. Evangelos Zugris. Kenai Roots. You have a deep team. They're going to score a lot of points. It's going to be one of the best offenses in the country. However, now you ask, well, why are the Cardinals at number 14 if their offense is at number 5? Well, the defensive rating is at 38. Now, that's not terrible. Let's make that clear. It's not terrible, but kind of highlights what we talk about, right? What are we going to see from this Cardinals defense? I think part of it might be me sitting here with red tinted glasses on trying to convince myself that the defense is going to be better. I do feel like we've got some data or arguments to support that. Michael Brown Jr. is going to be a much better on-ball defender than perceived. Some people think he's just going to be barbecue chicken on the defensive end. That's not true. He's a pesky on-ball defender who's adding weight. Now he's 6'4", maybe even 6'5". Like, he's going to be a challenging assignment to play. You've got Adrian Woolley, who I feel like has a higher defensive ceiling. McNeely and Conwell, still TBD, but Kobe Rogers coming off the bench as a solid point of attack defender in the backcourt. You've got your versatile, switchable defenders, Javon Hadley, Kenai Roots, Kaysen Pryor. How much is that season-ending injury last year going to affect his lateral mobility and his lateral quickness? I don't think as much. From what I've heard, he looks pretty solid leading up to the start of the season. So you've got your versatile defenders, Pryor, Hadley, Roots, Sananda Fruit, one of the best shot blockers in the Bundesliga this past season. Evangelos Zugris might not be the fastest. He might not be the most athletic. He might not be the tallest or the best shot blocker, but he is pure muscle, and he plays at one speed, and that's 150%. And then you've got Ali Khalifa, who is never known to be a great defender, but he has slimmed down. He's toned his body. He's ripped now. He's jacked, and he's transformed his frame. So 38th, I feel like it's respectable at the moment. Top 40, you still have to see it. And don't forget, these are preseason numbers. Things are going to change. They're going to change pretty drastically until we have a good enough sample size to be able to depict how good a team is on both ends of the floor. Offensively, I think KenPom gets it. Those that look at it from an unbiased point of view know that this Cardinals offense is going to be really good. Defensively, maybe it's a hot take here. I'm okay with it being top 40. I mean, I still think that's respectable. I don't think that Louisville's going to be this lockdown team. I think that they're going to be a serviceable defending team that, because of their pace of play offensively, the numbers might look worse than they are because if they're shooting more shots, if they're scoring more points, that means that other teams are also going to have more defensive possessions, more offensive possessions by the numbers. So KenPom is a great analytical model with various metrics that usually tell the tale more than the AP rankings, the coaches poll, so on and so forth. So I'm just really excited for this season to start. Less than 2 weeks away from the first exhibition game. So that is going to wrap up this Monday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. Great start to your week. We'll see you back here very soon. Go Cards.